All right, everybody, and welcome back to the Still in Love podcast. This is episode number 9. And today we are continuing the conversation on
I cannot communicate with my spouse. Help.
Okay.
Sometimes you're in situations where you have a difficult spouse and it's just hard to communicate with them. It is so, I was really excited about this. This is our 3rd week.
And talking about communication.
Yeah, talking about communication. And we're talking about it because it's so vital for marriages. And we're getting, comments from people and just how it's truly blessing them because communication is essential. Good communication is essential in a marriage. And here's the thing. You're always communicating.
Yes.
You're always communicating. We talked about verbal, nonverbal communication. And just the 7% of communication is what you say. 38% of communication is how you say it. And 55% of communication is body language. And just so you're always communicating, whether you're nodding your head, whether you're not nodding your head, whether you're looking at your phone, whether you're sighing, whether you're engaged, you're always communicating. And so it's important. So in your marriage, you're always communicating with each other. So I think it's so important that we talk about this and we just dig deep before we fast forward to something else because it's important in marriage.
It is.
Amen.
It is.
I want to share this particular scripture that I think is going to bless you all as it relates to communication and really communicating with a difficult spouse or communicating with a defensive spouse. And we touched the surface or we dove into it on last week, but I think it's so important to talk a little more about it because I think people really, it's difficult because you have people that's been married for 10, 12, 15 years and they don't know how, like my spouse has been defensive for 10, 12, 15 years. How do I communicate with them? What do I say to them? How do I deal with? And I think this podcast would even help, and it's for married couples, but that's even in situations where you're dealing with defensive children, defensive family members, defensive co-workers, defensive supervisor, a defensive employee, and so how do I deal with defensive people? But we really want to deal with marriage, amen. But I think you can take some stuff out of it. Now listen, James 1:19 and 20 says this, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. So he spoke, take note of this. He didn't just begin to talk. He said, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this.
Write it down.
I'm here to tell you, my dear brothers and sisters is out there in podcast world. Take note of this. Take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen. He said everyone should be quick to listen. So in communication, before you begin to talk, be quick to listen because listening is a part of communicating as well.
Correct.
Let me listen. Most of our counseling sessions, I'm the one listening. When we're counseling people, we're listening. They're talking. Now we give input and we give advice and we share a lot, but we want to hear the problem. We want to hear the problem and we want to identify with them and let them know that we understand them and nod our heads. It doesn't matter what they say. They could say, you know what, we just
I bust him last night with a skillet.
Yeah. Okay. Because we don't, hey, we're listening. We're listening. So we're everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak. When your husband is trying to communicate something to you, be quick to listen and be slow to speak. Sometimes he don't want to communicate with you because you're too quick to speak and slow to listen. That's he don't want to communicate. He don't want to talk. He don't want to open up because you refuse to be slow to speak and you're always quick to speak. You don't listen well. You don't understand him. You don't let him talk. You don't allow him to express himself. And you just so quick to speak. And that can go both ways.
Absolutely.
But James said, be quick to listen and slow to speak. Not quick to speak and slow to listen. And that's what some of us do. You quick to speak and you slow to listen. So your spouse feels like, man, that's a problem. I don't want to share with you. I don't want to communicate with you because you are so quick to speak and you're so slow to listen. But James said, listen, take note of this. Be swift to hear, slow to speak, and listen to the third part. He said, and slow to become angry.
Because what you may hear may make you angry.
Be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to become angry, because the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God.
Amen.
So, and it goes both ways. It goes to the individual that is dealing with a defensive spouse, and it also speaks to a defensive spouse, because a defensive spouse oftentimes are, quick to speak, slow to listen, and slow to get upset. That's what causes the defensiveness, because the feeling of inadequacy and the feeling that you're attacking me. And I take any criticism or constructive criticism as an attack. It's personal, but it's really the way that I feel about myself. So when you speak to me, I stonewall you. I put up a wall, and I don't want to listen to you. I don't want to, because I built up this wall, and now whatever you say, it really doesn't matter. So I'm not even going to give you an opportunity to pour all of this negativity, because that's how I perceive it, on me, because I'm going to be swift to speak. And slow to listen, and quick to get angry, because I'm defensive.
Yeah.
But the word of God said, no defensive individual, be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to get angry, because the wrath of man, your anger, does not work the righteousness of God. Like, God doesn't get glorified in your anger.
Right.
Your anger doesn't move God.
Right.
And also, even with people, your anger doesn't move, and it's moved some people, because your defensiveness, in essence, have moved your spouse. Because you know that when you shut down, when you react a certain way, then your spouse will get off your case. Or when you react a certain way, then your spouse will move on. And you felt that that's worked for you for so long, so you continue to practice the thing that you feel that's worked for you. But your spouse is losing because you're so defensive. My God. See, I wanted to talk first about this, Sweet. I wanted to talk about how to deal with the defensive spouse, but I think, just in talking about it, is dealing with the spouse that is defensive.
Okay.
So we switching it a little bit. Let's deal with the spouse that's defensive.
If I am a defensive spouse, help me.
So, defensive spouse, be slow to speak.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Be slow to get upset. Be quick to hear. So in other words, if you're defensive, listen for a minute. Just listen. Listen to understand.
Is there truth to what is being said to me? Is there truth to what is being said to me? Is there by chance? Because even when we are defensive, I think I would like to think that most of us know ourselves. We know those things. It's just sometimes we get upset when what we know about ourselves now becomes public to other people. And so we find issue with that. We don't like when our insecurities are put on display. We don't like that. So we would like to think that all of our insecurities, or the things that we hide from other people, or the things that we don't really feel secure in, are always hidden. But they're not, because they come out in a lot of ways. They come out in how we say things and things that we say. So in first things first, of course, I'm going to always say, knowing yourself is so important. Right. But is there truth to what is being said to me? Is there some truth in what my spouse is trying to communicate? And obviously, and not obviously, but sometimes it is truth to that. And that's what makes us a little, it's the fear that my issue or my ugly is being exposed. Yep. And I don't know how to deal with it. For one, I haven't even processed my own insecurities. I'm not aware of them. Or even if I'm aware of what I'm insecure about, I haven't really dealt with it. So I don't want to deal with it with another person. And so in identifying, is there some truth to it? Then sometimes that I can, definitely speak for myself in areas where I have definitely been defensive. It was, now, is he lying? Is he lying about what he's saying? No. But if I'm not in a place to deal with that on my own, then I'm gonna keep that wall up. I'm gonna nope. I'm not dealing with that. But if I am in a place where I'm kind of ready to process that, or I'm fully aware that this is an area where I'm not as secure in, then I'm not as apt to try to defend myself and speak quickly. Yeah, I'm not prone to that. And then, of course, that's not going to push me to anger. It's only when And that takes practice. That takes where you have to sit down and you really have to think about, beyond once you bypass the question of is there truth in it, then it really is okay. Now listen to what's being said. Listen to how this is coming across, or listen to what this is doing to your spouse.
Yeah, I think you said the key thing. We did a sermon series called "A Better Me," and really, before you get married, you need to become a better you. Before you have children,
ideally,
you should become a better you.
Ideally,
before you go into the workforce, you should become a better you. Before you get promoted, you should become a better you. You should be in a consistent state of bettering yourself. And oftentimes, people get in marriages and they hadn't worked on themselves.
Yeah.
And when that happens,
or we stop.
Yeah.
We stop. We do the things. In singleness, we do the things, but because we feel like maybe getting the ring or walking down the aisle is the end goal. So I no longer work on. I no longer work on keeping, pursuing betterment.
Yep.
I no longer work on it.
And when you're dealing with a lot of insecurities, or when you're defensive, because at the root of it is insecurity, and so when you're dealing with that on any level, you become defensive, and so you have to really work on you. Now, here's the thing: we talked about this last week, just about self-awareness and knowing yourself, And saying I have to better myself and get to the root of this, to know that I am enough, to know that those areas that I feel inadequate in, I need to really work that, because oftentimes you don't really deal with the truth of of someone's opinion about you.
Yes.
You don't want to deal with that.
No.
So when you ask yourself the question, like, is this true? Oftentimes you don't even get to that because you're so defensive, because you're so guarded, because you want them to perceive whatever you want them to perceive. You want them to perceive that you're perfect. You want them to perceive you how you want them to perceive you. And you have a problem with them for perceiving you any different than what you put out there for them. And so you can't get around that place of working on you. You have to work on you. And so the frustration on we're going to get to you, but the frustration on one of the spouses who's dealing with a defensive spouse is saying, so I can't break through my spouse because my spouse doesn't work on him.
Right.
My spouse doesn't do anything. He does nothing for personal growth. He does nothing to deal with his insecurities. He just sit in it, and I have to deal with it, and it's frustrating. We'll talk about that. But for the spouse that is defensive, it's coming to that place of allowing God to really break you, to allowing God to challenge you, to allowing God to get into that wall and deal with your insecurities and deal with your defensiveness, because it's not cute, it's not God honoring, and it is hurting your marriage more than you know it. Couple of things. It's getting to know yourself better. These are some things you can do. You got to get to a place to where, how can I get to know myself better?
Yes.
That's the question that you ask to where, is there some truth to that? You get upset when your spouse has a certain opinion of you because of a reputation that you formed. You formed their reputation because you consistently did the wrong thing. You consistently did something, for instance, at work, you're consistently late, and you get upset when people build a system around you because you're consistently late. So they tell you that it starts at 9 o'clock when really it started at 10 o'clock because they know if they tell you that it started at 10 o'clock, you're going to get there at 10:20. Yeah. So when they say you started at 9 o'clock, you're going to get there at 9:50. And so when you figure out that, it really started at 10 o'clock, you get upset and you start, why y'all put this? No, you told us that we need to form we need to build a system around you because you're not going to do right when we tell you the right time.
Right.
But you get upset when people build systems around you.
Yeah.
This is the reputation that you formed yourself, and that's what happens in marriage. You formed a reputation. You formed a reputation. You built this reputation for yourself. Because when you said that you was going to pick up the kids on time, you didn't pick them up. When you said that you was going to pay the bills on time, you didn't pay the bills. When you said that you was going to be somewhere when you were supposed to be there, you weren't there when you were supposed to be there. And so now your spouse has an opinion of you, and they ask you, are you really going to be there? Are you really going to pick them up on time? Now I know, and you get upset and defensive. I said don't pick them up on time. No, you said the last 10 times you was going to pick them up on time, and you didn't.
Yeah.
So that's a reputation that you have. So rather than you changing your reputation, You get upset because your reputation has been tarnished. But you can't get upset at them. You get upset. You have to get upset at yourself. And oftentimes that's what we do as individuals. We get upset with other people because they formed a rep. I remember I was meeting with somebody before, and I was in a place of being late. Like, I was being a couple of minutes late. And so this one guy said this. He was like, "Oh man," because I got there real early. And he came and he was like, "Oh, I didn't know you was here. You here on time." And I felt some kind of way.
Yeah.
"Oh, what you mean I'm here on time?" Then I began to think about, like, wait a minute. I was late the last time. I think I was late the time before then. It was a couple of minutes, but I was late. This is a businessman, so you need. And I was like, I can't get upset with him because of the opinion that he formed about me, that I helped him to form because of my actions. So rather than being upset with him, I had to change my reputation by changing what I did. And so that's how you move from defensiveness to a place of pleasure, a place where you're open and you can talk and people can speak to you. A couple of things I think is important. Get to know yourself better. Know, this how I've been rolling. This what I've been. I have been late. I hadn't been responsible. I don't respond. I don't communicate well, and I gotta know that about myself. They're not pulling it out of the sky. Your spouse did not pull that out of the sky. It's something that you've done consistently.
And that it's okay.
That's right.
It's okay to be flawed.
That's
it's
right.
okay to not be perfect. It is absolutely okay.
So that's one. Another thing is get better at listening. Practice on listening. Rather than responding so quick, just work on let me really listen, and listen to understand rather than listening to respond. But it comes from working on yourself.
Yeah.
I gotta really let me really hear this person, what this person is saying to me, and not just I'm listening to respond.
And sometimes the response it's coming out of I want you to. It is in defense, but it's also because I don't really want to hear what it is you're saying to me too. So it's a very low level manipulative tactic that you use to keep people out.
Yes. And then I think you gotta know when you're being defensive.
Yes.
See, that's the self-awareness. I mean, we probably have the whole podcast on self-awareness because you gotta know when you're being defensive. And it takes self-awareness, like, okay, I'm feeling some kind of way right now. I'm my guards are up. Gloves are on.
That's it.
Because
when I start lacing up.
That's right.
That's defense acting. That's defense. I'm in defense mode.
Yes. So it's take some deep breaths. Calm down. Like let me relax. Let me get aware of I'm being defensive. Let me begin to listen more. Let me calm down. Let me take some deep breaths. Let me think before I respond. Okay, so I can use description James 1:19 and 20. Be slow to speak. Be quick to listen. Slow to speak. Okay, let me be quiet.
Yeah.
Don't let yourself interrupt. And it's difficult. Even if your spouse is talking a while, don't let yourself interrupt.
Yes.
Let me be slow to speak, quick to listen, and slow to get angry. Calm down. Let me not get so angry. Let me not trip out about it and respond in a calm manner. See, if you do this consistently, you're working on your defensiveness.
Yeah.
If you do this and you're praying, God, have your way in my life because I don't want to be defensive because it's not cute, because it's frustrating. And listen, your spouse is not the only person that feel like you're defensive. Your kids know you're defensive. People around you know that you're defensive. They know because your guards are up. And in most cases, when your guards are up in one area of your life, it's up in several areas of your life.
Yeah.
So it's never just one area. And so working on that, and also viewing things from the other person's perspective. You got to view things from their perspective to where, and people have a difficult time in doing this. Like, let me put the shoe on the other foot. If I wasn't responding to my spouse and they was trying to communicate with me, how would I feel? Let me look at it from their perspective. They've been asking me to pick the kids up at 7, and I've been getting there, from practice at 7:30, and I put them in a bind. So, how would that make me feel? I understand that.
Yeah.
And people, when you begin to do that, when you begin to say, I can see what you. I I can see what you're saying. These are some tools that will bless your marriage in communication. You know what? When you're nodding your head, when someone is communicating with you, when you're empathizing with them, when you're listening to understand and you're not just trying to be understood, when you're listening to understand rather than listening to respond, and you're nodding and you're saying, I can see how you came to that conclusion. I could see how you feel like that. You know, I can understand how that made you feel. I mean, practicing that, putting that in practice, your defensive mechanisms they'll relax. You know, when you put that in practice. But is it easy, Tori, to put that in practice?
No, it's not.
I'm gonna say this, and this is gonna bless somebody today, Tori. It's gonna liberate somebody. Because we didn't even plan this. What I'm ready to do. She's like, okay, what are you getting ready to do? I want to talk a little bit about this. You said this before to me. You said that because I viewed you as defensive. And you talked to me about this, about early on in our marriage, about me being critical. And oftentimes, see how it works together to where one spouse is critical and another spouse is defensive. So what happened first? Oh, this is going to bless somebody today. Because one spouse is saying, I'm defensive, yes, but I have a reason to be defensive because I have a very critical husband or a very critical wife, and they always criticize me. And so my defense mechanism, because everywhere I go, I feel like I'm being attacked. Then the other spouse is saying, like, no, I'm only defensive, I'm only critical because you're so defensive. So your defensiveness caused me to be critical because I can't say anything to you. So where do we go? Because there's a spouse out there that feels that their husband is being, or their wife is being defensive. How did you deal with that when you felt that I was critical?
Well, I think it goes, so first things first, I think it's naturally, I am probably a less critical person. Meaning I am far more, not that you're not grace extending, but I am far more, that is okay. I am quicker to extend grace on some things. Oh, well, you didn't mean to do that. You know, I'm not going to let it pass forever.
You used to be.
I still am. I'm very much so. But I think, you know, of course, during that time, it's early on in marriage. We're relatively young. We're still trying to figure this thing out. And I think it tied a little bit into our personalities too. I'm a little more chill. A little more laid back. So certain things just don't bother me as much. With you, not so much. A little more, you know,
Go on, say it.
Yeah. A little more giving. You know what I'm saying? So in your eyes, sometimes what comes natural to you is seeing something that is wrong, jumping on top of it, wanting to say something about it. And then like, that's the motivator, right? So for you, operating like that is more of a motivation. It's more of a motivator. For me, that's not a motivator. Right. Like, you know, you can going throughout a day without acknowledging something that could possibly be wrong, or seeing something that's wrong, like, you know, throughout the day, it's probably difficult for you to not respond all the time because you're always in the mode of things can be better. It can be better. It can be better. When I'm just like, hey, just enjoy it the way it is. Like, just enjoy it the way it is. And so sometimes you would communicate something every day. You would be communicating something that you had a problem with every day. And nobody wants to hear that. Like, well, I didn't. Like, I don't want to hear what's wrong every day. I don't bring you what's wrong to you every day. Everything you do is not perfect. And I just saw it as, that's a part of who you are. I accept that. That is okay. I can live with that. But for you, it was like, no, let's do better in that. Like, let's jump on it. Let's do better. And it's like, that's no, I don't want that. I don't want to be working on this something every single day. Like, that's too much. Some days you just want to sit and enjoy the present. You know what I'm saying? I remember telling you, like, you said something just about like my goofiness one time, and I was like, yeah, you gonna love it. Like, yeah, like I'm not not that I'm not gonna change that. Yeah, but it's just like that's a part of who I am. Like, that doesn't need to be corrected. Embrace that. Love that. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that it's when you are the individual who is a little more high strung, who is a little more vibrant, notice you just, but that's it's kind of like how some giftings and some abilities or some personalities God gives us. It is a blessing to have that. But it can also be a bit of a weight have that type of personality, you know? Yeah. And so to think that, but it's the same way with the individual who is not. Both can be a blessing. It is the balance of the two. That's right. It's us working to get into our perfect groove. It is your fast step with my slow step that makes us have perfect steps. Come on. So I think, you know, and early on, it was just, yeah, Myron, like, I'm not used to, for one, I'm not used to this. And two, we don't have to, something is not always wrong. Something, and we're not going to build, we don't have to build like that. And so, but I think it initially, I would take that very personal. And it was very, it wasn't crippling, but it was very hurtful. Because I'm like, why do you always find something wrong? Everything does not have to be revamped. Everything does not have everything does not deserve a let's work on it stamp. Some things we're just gonna let it be. And so you bringing certain things to light and bringing things to the attention, I was like, dang, like I'm not perfect, but I don't need to be. Stuff don't have to be fixed on all the time. But it also took, before I could say that, it was almost like an acknowledgement within myself, like, because initially when I would hear those things, I did take it personal, and I did feel like I'm not up to par. Like, I felt like, because I'm already feeling that. Yeah. I'm already feeling like, okay, I'm not cutting the mustard. And here you come validating that. Your every critique was a validation of I'm not enough, until it was like, wait a minute, wait, I'm enough. We gotta change up some things, because when you do that, when you constantly bring things to the forefront, this is, again, it goes into knowing yourself. When you know that you have a personality type that sees things, things that need to be corrected, you're a natural coach. You're natural. You are a natural coach. So when you see things on the field, on the court, that we got to do better in it because it's going to cost you in the long run. We're going to do better in it. We got to do better. When you see those things, you naturally want to jump on it. But in marriage, you can't always be coach. You have to be spouse. You know? Yes. And I don't want to be married to coach. That's right. I just want Myron. I don't want Coach Myron. So it's just exist. Just be here. Because sometimes when you're always working to make things better, you miss moments. Come on, girl. You miss just existing with the individual that God gave you, the balance, the other person, the balance to you. And so when you're always working to make that thing better, you will sometimes miss just the mundane, boring, nothing, the good stuff, like just chilling and just simply enjoying it. So I think, just being aware of that. If you are the Myron or the coach or the natural go-getter in the relationship, it's being aware of your spouse that they may not have that personality style. It doesn't mean that they're less driven. It doesn't mean that they're less invested in a relationship. It doesn't mean anything less. It just means that they're different, and giving them room to be them. And so if your aggressiveness or your need, or your not really need, but if your desire for always the pursuit of better is causing friction in the relationship, listen to what the other spouse may be saying, and that I don't necessarily need that in order to work on the marriage. You work on things vocal. I work on things non-vocally. So we can hear the same message. We can hear something, and it will literally, you want to talk it through as you work on it. I'm like, I'm not going to say much. I'm just going to start working on it. if we both are being challenged to get up every morning at 5:00, you're gonna talk through yours like, I bet. So I got this going. Like, I'm gonna, I need to get in the bed, man. Get in the bed and lay down. I'm just like, yep. Don't say nothing. Just get in the bed. Just set your alarm. Just I don't work in the vocal all the time. Yeah. So, but the goal is still gonna be the same. So, that was probably a very roundabout way of getting
really
there,
good.
but.
Yeah. And because I think it's so, and I wanted to ask on here because I wanted to be so transparent and because I feel that it can be very therapeutic to people that's listening because we lived that.
Yes.
It to where I felt that I wasn't critical and she felt that I was critical. So we didn't understand this concept or this Coach Myron.
Yeah.
So when she really realized, he's not necessarily being critical.
Right.
He's coaching.
Yes.
And that's what he does. He always want to make things better. So she began to look at it a little different than, okay, he's not being, now she didn't like it, but I feel like you received it a little different to where, okay, I don't like it, but he's not being critical of me.
But that also came with, hey, we're different, but when you're in it,
that's right.
When you are in it, it feels like you don't like me. Yeah. It feels like you don't like me. Girl. I'm not enough for you, and I'm just not it. I'm not it for you. Listen, and I would say I've said that to you before. Like,
listen, y'all.
You are not happy with me. Like you find a problem with everything, and I don't like that. And of course, because you're female and you get in your feelings. But I have a problem with this, or when you said this, and when you're constantly highlighting a problem, when you're constantly highlighting, this is something that I didn't get right. It's just like that hurts at the moment, especially if you are dealing with your own set of insecurities. If these are areas that I'm not all the way secure in, and again, you are bringing more attention to either another area or the same area that I'm not secure in, you are constantly validating the fact that I am not enough. So now there's this feeling of, yes, I'm not enough for you. So if I'm not enough for you, and out of my actions come from an overflow of what is in my heart and in my mind and in my beliefs, I act out what I truly believe. If I feel like, or if I believe in my heart of hearts that I'm not enough for you, it is going to be very hard for me to give you what you need because I ultimately do not feel like I'm enough for you. And so it was affecting certain things. Like I can't make certain moves, or I don't want to make certain moves because I'm not enough. And nobody who feels like they're not enough feels motivated to give their partner what it is that they need. So it was taking a step back, and it was saying, hey, wait a minute, wait. Like I am enough. Like I'm not perfect, but I'm enough. So maybe how some of this is being communicated. All right, back up. Hey, Myron, you are indeed you're a natural encourager. So it comes across sometimes as, because I'm this natural encourager, I always want people to do better. Like I always want people. I'm going to, if they come in contact with you, anybody, I'm coming in for the more. I'm going to encourage you to bring forth more. Mm-hmm. In marriage, when you're married to the encourager, motivator, coach, that can sometimes come across, or I viewed it as, every day we do not have to find something that needs to be worked on or something that needs to be motivated up. I don't want that. Yeah. It was almost overwhelming at times because, again, depending on whatever season I'm in my life, some seasons I can take the motivation. Some seasons I really can't take that because my ground within myself was already shaky. Yeah. So you're adding on and validating this I'm not enough thing in me. And so when that's present, you have to dial back. And what would normally happen, instead of couples communicating and talking that thing through, they start beefing. Yeah. And now we are just simply acting out. So now, instead of me stopping and talking and saying, hey, I know I'm enough, but just when you communicate that to me, nobody's talking. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm just going to start acting what I feel. I'm going to ignore you. We're going to have very long silent treatments. I'm going to start making moves that validate within myself that I'm enough, and I'm just going to leave you out of certain things because obviously you don't think I'm enough. So I'm going to make moves that leave you to some extent out of my life. And what kind of marriage is that? Because now you are building on some very shaky ground because you're not doing it together. You're doing it as a hurt individual. And of course, we hear this all the time. Hurt people hurt people. So now it's all about you hurt me when all you were doing was simply being you, and you were just unaware that, okay, maybe I need to dial back on my betterment, my push for better, because it's coming across this way. So instead of me communicating it to you, I just take it within myself, and now we're fighting. And now months turn into weeks turn into months turn into years, and we've had years of back and forth when honestly a simple conversation or a few conversations about, hey, when you communicate or when you say this to me, this is how this makes me feel. And what we're talking about is like big girl, big boy stuff.
That's
like
right. That's
you have
right.
to really,
That's right.
you have to be ready to move to this expected end. When you have somebody who wants to hold on to their defensiveness, and here's the thing too, most of our defensiveness did not come from our spouse. We were already like this when we came into it.
Preach,
now
girl.
there are exceptions to the rules. Sometimes I know when we say things like this and we post on social media, people take things and they run with it because you make one general statement and now it's that. Well, it's not like that for me. What I'm saying is this is a very general statement in that oftentimes we come into the marriage, we come into the relationship with some insecurities. We come in that, which is why it's very, very important that you and your spouse you're able to talk about some of these things, because you don't come into this thing perfect. When you cross that threshold, I don't care who you are. For the most part, there is going to be something that you feel a little shaky about. There's going to be something about you that there's going to be some level of insecurity about. And if prayerfully you have vetted your spouse enough to be able to handle and carry that type of, not for them to carry, but to know, you be able to say and express, I do have this little insecurity about this, and they not take advantage of that, and they not jump on that or hold that insecurity against you. Because there are people like that. There are absolutely individuals who, if you expose your flaws or your weakness to them, they will use that as a means to get what they want. So prayerfully and hopefully you are being pursued, ladies, by men who honor God and who will not take advantage of the position that God is putting, that God is allowing them in your life. And they won't see that as an opportunity just to gain something, but they will see that as an opportunity to allow God to use them to bring healing in that particular area in your life. So because we come into marriage sometimes with that, and spouses can either help heal that, or they can continue and they can build on that, and you can become even more insecure in areas from your spouse. Good. I remember when Pastor Thomas, our pastor who married us, when he said that, and for years I've never really talked about that. You have mentioned it several times, but about how I can make or break your ministry. Like I literally can make or break your ministry, and I don't think we as spouses sometimes know the weight of just simply being a spouse. You can make or break your spouse. You can help be a conduit for Jesus's love in your home to your spouse, or you can be the devil. You choose. Which one you gonna be? Either God gonna use me or the devil gonna use me. And it's not always easy to be used by God. It's not always easy to be used by God. So it's very easy to be used by the enemy. It's very easy. I could just do nothing and be used by him. Not be mindful of what I say, not be mindful of what I do, not be mindful that I'm living with someone else in my home who, when we think about it, we are just human beings that God has placed here on this earth. Like we are, none of us are perfect in all of our pursuits of all of these things these days and times. We are not perfect, and going into that, like, listen, if we were to get married all over again just from scratch, it would be like, listen, don't expect perfection from me. Just know that I'm going to work. I'm going to continue to work on me. I'm going to continue to be sanctified. I'm going to continue to allow God to sanctify, purify, do his work in me. And as a result of that, I hope and I pray that I can be the wife that God is pleased with and that you are happy to have. But that's all I got. That's all I got because I'm human. That's all I got. Can't even really make a promise on some things. All I can say is this all I'm bringing to the table. This is it.
Listen, this is so good.
This
is so good. And I think we were coming one way. The direction I was going in is.
I'm
really,
sorry, I took us another way.
Which was really good because I didn't even let you know that that this what I was going to bring up.
Okay.
And it was so real because I wanted the authentic. I didn't want the authentic because what happens is you got some people, when we talk about a defensive spouse, I think the spouse that feels that they have a defensive spouse, I want to tune into this podcast.
Right.
And because they want to deal with their defensive spouse and like, you see, but I think God did something different. And there was a twist to it to where, wait a minute, maybe it's not all about your defensive spouse. Maybe it's about your criticism.
Yeah.
And you being critical.
Yeah.
And you're adding to the defensiveness.
Yes.
Because you mentioned this, that prior to, you already had insecurities.
That's
with
it.
your insecurities and your feeling like you're not enough, did I help in the healing process or did I help in the hurting process?
Yes.
You see, and so I have to take some responsibility and accountability for that.
Yes.
To know that no, I'm not responsible for hurting you.
For creating the insecurity. That's not on you.
But I added to that.
Absolutely.
And as a husband, I'm supposed to help heal the hurt that she already had in the marriage. When the Bible talks about, the sanctifying her, it's what did I play a part in that process? And I think ultimately now I've done that. But early on, I didn't know anything about that and helping sanctifying her. And look, I want us to be better. And when she would say that, that I'm being critical, I felt that she's making excuses. She's just, just like, man, I can't say nothing to her. She's defensive, and I ain't, man. I'm not finna sit around. Listen to this. I'm not finna sit around and not say anything. If we need to be better, we gonna be better because that was my focus. I coach football. I coach basketball. I coach baseball. My life is my spiritual gift is one of them is exhortation. So I exhort and I want to make it better.
Yes.
And if we're right here, we can be better. And so I wasn't thinking that I was being critical. I'm thinking that I'm saying we can be better. If we took this trip this year, we can take 2 next year. If we got this year, why not have more? But she saw it as like, so is what we have not better? It's
We
not
have
enough.
not enough? Yeah.
Am I not enough? I mean, so baby, you look like this, but if you did your hair like this, then it's so what how she interpreted that. So is my hair not enough? Do you have a problem? Do you want somebody with hair like this? So and so I'm like, no. But when she got to a place where she saw herself better, then she could hear me from a different place and understand to where maybe he's not really being critical, but he's in coach mode. And whether it's critical or coach mode, it wasn't edifying to her.
Yes.
And I needed to stop it. I needed to pause. And in my maturity, I saw that. And I had to calm down and understand to where she didn't need it like this.
Yeah.
I was trying to give her what I was trying to speak in the language to her that I would like to receive for myself. And I had to stop giving her how I wanted to receive and give her how she needed to receive.
Yes.
How did she need encouragement? How did she need my support? How did she see better? And I had to take a break and say, let me calm down. She doesn't get it like the kids on the field. She doesn't get it like a couple of friends of mine to where we can sit down and we can sit at lunch and we both can go. We just like, hey man, we're going to go, we're going to do this. We're going to run 5 miles. We're going to lift weights. And we just chest bump each other. And she's like, when I talked to her like that, she told me it brings anxiety to her.
Yes.
Oh my God, this some good. She said that don't motivate her.
Yes.
She said when you come to me like that,
Yep.
and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna conquer the world, and we're gonna put 10 videos out. I mean, she's like,
Whoa.
Like it brings her anxiety.
Overwhelmed.
So what I had to do is calm down a little bit and realize who I was dealing with.
Yes.
And if she viewed it as being critical, in my mind, that's the furthest thing from my mind. Like being critical of you, who God gave me, who God placed in my life, my good thing. I'm missing the mark. And I began to change and stop being critical and stop giving it to her how I was giving it to her. Now, here's the thing. It took her a minute to stop being defensive or as defensive. So I changed my approach. I didn't address her the way that I addressed her. And there was some time had gone by and she was still defensive. And I'm saying, why you defensive? And she was like, because of what, you brought about this. And I'm like, baby, it's been a long time now to where I've been speaking words of healing, words of encouraging, but it was seeds that I had planted from years ago.
Yes.
Then she got to, so it was both.
Yes.
Then she got to a place to where, wait a minute, I'm still making him pay for things that he said to me years ago.
Yes.
And a lot of that was self-reflecting, and it was to a place to where she saw, this is really not him.
Yes.
This is me, because now he's doing his part and he's speaking life and he's encouraging me and he's helping to heal those areas that I was broken in and those areas that he helped break in me. But until she got to a place in her life where she chose, well, I will not be defensive. I will not continue to hold on. I will allow myself to be healed. That's when we saw progression in our marriage.
Yes.
Come on, girl.
It took moving beyond. So it was this light bulb in me. Okay, I'm moving, like I'm working on me. I'm working on those insecurities. The defensiveness was still there, because it is absolutely possible. Like, our lives are about routine, habits. Right? Everybody here, some things we do and we say, not because we want to say and do them, but we have just formed habits, mentalities. I was still in this place of, I need to be defensive with you. I was still functioning. Even though your behavior had changed, I was still functioning like I needed to be defensive with you, like my guard still needed to be up, and it was just done subconsciously. Like, and here's what we have to really sit back and do often in relationships. Communication is so important, but you also have to sit back sometimes and take inventory. You have to assess, where are we? Are you still the same? Are you still doing the things that I talked to you about last year? But that comes with talking. That comes through communication. And you brought it to my attention that, I'm not doing those things anymore. Now, that's two things. There's 2 points to be made in that. One, don't expect your spouse to immediately have a change or a change course because you started doing something 2 weeks ago.
That's right.
It took you 14 years. You gave me, not you, but you can give your spouse 14 years of criticalness. And because you decided that you no longer want to do that and you guys are moving in a different direction, you've decided that you're doing this and you're moving together. You cannot expect your everything to make a complete 180 because you made the decision. Now, what you're doing is you are uprooting those seeds. You are sowing new seeds. Everything you do in your marriage is a seed. All of that criticalness that you have been given throughout the years is bearing fruit. Okay? There is fruit to be received from that. So just because you start sowing a new seed, you have to give that new seed time to get down into the soil that I hope was sown on good soil. You have to give that seed time to get down there and to eventually give you a harvest. No seed that you plant at the night before is going to give you an immediate harvest. You have to sow new seeds, and that is in communication as well. So if you have been a certain way all these years, whether it's critical, resentful, you've been walking around with unforgiveness, if you've sown a lot of negativity in your marriage and you decide together as a couple, now you are starting the journey on sowing new seeds. And if you're deciding together to move forward, then hopefully that ground is really good to receive the new seeds. But there is sometimes consequence. And there is sometimes residual from poor decisions that we have made in our relationships. So let's not think that because your spouse has made the decision to do or to change behavior, that you are going to see an immediate response to some of that, an immediate response to it. It doesn't work like that, especially if you've given them years of something. Give enough time. Give enough time in your relationship to make that change. That's the first part. So the second part is acknowledging the change. It is so easy for us to stay in routine. Well, I've always functioned like this. If you went through a rough patch in your marriage and you were always angry, you were always mad, you were always upset, and you all decide, even you sit down together and you decide that we're going to move forward like this, you know you can still function and operate mad out of pure habit. Nobody did anything to you. Nobody has done. You don't have to have a reason to do things out of habit. Sometimes, like you said this to me before, like you just be saying no out of habit. Like you will say, hey, let's, and I was just starting to do it, and it literally was that. Was it that I didn't want to go to the movies? No. Was it that I didn't want to go to family night? No. I'm just going to say no, because it was just a habit that had been formed. So some of this is not that your spouse is doing anything to you. It's not that nobody's doing anything to you. Some things we have just developed out of habit because our hearts were sick. Our hearts were in unforgiveness. It was in bitterness. It was in anger. It was riddled with very poor self-image, low self-esteem. It was just riddled with a lot of negativity. And so we continue to function in it. And when that is not checked, you have to check that. Why are you still making him pay? Why are you still, if he's no longer doing that behavior, he has been encouraging, why are you holding on to that mindset? Why are you doing it? Trust the process and let it go. Trust it.
You know, and so we're going to give you about 2 minutes. So this was good. So this, if you have a spouse and you've contributed to the defensiveness, I think you have a responsibility, you know, and one of the things that I did and that, you know, that's important. And I think that's important for you all. If you are dealing with a defensive spouse, whether they came into the relationship or to the marriage defensive, whether you played a part in that, or whether you had nothing to do with that, they're defensive. It's in dealing with them, because you need to deal with them. It's important that you create a safe place to speak with them, a safe environment to let them know that you're not there to harm them. You're not there to hurt them. You know, that was one of the things that I feel like I had to show you, that, hey, I'm not your enemy. That was one of the things that I know that I had to show her. Hey, listen, I'm not your enemy. I love you. I'm not looking to be critical. You know, just in moments of disagreement, you disagree wisely. There were certain things that I could say that I knew that I could cause her walls to just stand up. So I had to disagree wisely. Never disagree. When I address situations, address it assertively but calmly. So it's those different things as you deal with anybody that has been or that is defensive. You disarm them. You know, let me disarm you. Let me let you know, hey, look, I'm hands up. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to harm you. I love you. I'm there for you. I support you. I'm here to listen to you. You know, when there's a disagreement, making sure that you don't say words that appear to be critical. Don't use sarcasm. Don't use criticism. Those things are very important. And so when you're dealing with somebody that's defensive, you have a part to play in that.
Yes.
Or, you know, whether you helped create that or not, you have a part in playing in that. And it's not just, you know, kick them away. You kick them to the curb. They just got to get themselves together. Yeah, they need healing, but you play a part. God will use you to play a part in their healing. And if they know that you're a safe place, if they know that you're not being critical, if they know that you're listening to understand them, if they know that, you know, you're addressing, you know, situations, not looking to make them pay. I had to communicate with her that, hey, listen, we're on the same team, that I'm on your team, I'm on your side. Because for so long, whatever it was that she was dealing with and what I was contributing to, she felt that I was causing a wedge in between us to where we were not on the same team, because how she grew up and how I grew up was totally different. So once we became one, she had never experienced in her relationship with her parents, in her relationship with her friends, in her relationship with her coworkers, there was nobody in her life who challenged and checked and had, and spoke to different things in her life like I did. So she's like, this person doesn't like me. That's how she viewed that. And I had to really understand that and do my due diligence in working to let her know that I am not that person. I am not your enemy. I love you. And it takes time. It takes patience to do that.
Yes.
And, working through this thing, and it's not peaches. Things are not peaches and cream, but it's a consistent work. Understand that in marriage, you consistently work because we're at a place now to where we can share and we can be a blessing. And God has sent some healing in our relationship. It doesn't mean that we don't stop working. I still have to tread lightly. And not that she's going to be defensive, but because I've caused some hurt and some pain. I have to understand that if I'm not careful, I can help cause her to get back into this place. So it's me working and it's her working as well to prevent us from going back into a dog place. That's it right now. I pray that this blessed your life. We let y'all into some of our business, into some of our stuff, and I pray that it blessed your entire life. Amen. Oftentimes in marriage, you feel that you're the only one that's going through this, or no one has gone through what you're going through, and people are going through or have gone through what you're going through. Amen. And I pray that it has blessed your life. I pray that you can go back and listen to this podcast consistently and really get empowered and encouraged to know that there is hope for your defensive spouse, and there is hope for you that caused the defensiveness in your spouse. God bless you. See you next week.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Still in Love podcast. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode and it has indeed blessed your life. If it has, we need you to do 3 things for us. 1, we want you to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform so that way you can be notified when a new episode drops. Number 2, we want you to review it. Click on that 5-star and let us know how much you enjoyed it. We absolutely love feedback here at the Still in Love podcast, and this helps us to make sure that we are scratching where there's an itch. And number 3, we want you to share it with a friend or family member. Also, if you have a question, we'd love to hear it and even talk about it right here on the podcast. You can submit those questions at stillinlovepodcast.com. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Innovation Church Memphis and on TikTok at We Are Innovation. Until next time, peace.
Don't just start in love,
but stay in love.
Thanks for tuning in to Still in Love podcast. God bless.